Hey, what's going on, guys? I hope you all are doing well today. Elliot here, and welcome back to The Fragrance Well. So, continuing on with another summer fragrance video, we're gonna focus on some summertime fragrances that pack a punch, if you will. They're strong, they last long, they project nicely. For the most part, obviously, there's gonna be varying degrees of these. And the other good thing about these summertime fragrances, as far as I'm concerned, you can pretty much use them for just about every event related to summertime, whether it's work or just having some fun. So we got 10 of them here. That's not gonna waste a lot of time. Let's go ahead and get it started. But before we do, as always, please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and please hit that bell icon and enable notifications so you can be notified when I upload new videos. Let's get into it. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get it started. Now, it should go without saying that, this is going to be based off of my wearing experiences in terms of the projection and the longevity. That obviously is going to vary from person to person. So certainly test out these fragrances first. Develop your own conclusions. If some of these fragrances don't last long for you, then they just don't last long for you. No need to have a pity party about it. There's always going to be variations in how fragrances perform and or project for different people. So without further ado, first one's coming from the house of Mason Francis Kirkjohn. This is going to be Amyris Homme Extrait. Mason Francis Kirkjohn, Amyris Homme Extrait de Parfum. Fantastic summertime fragrance in my opinion. This one you could classify as a fresh and sweet fragrance featuring the note of amyris, kind of a balsamic woody smell, earthy kind of smell with a little bit of a fruitiness to it. A lot of Ceylon cinnamon here, a fresher and stronger variety of cinnamon in my opinion. Other fresh notes, sweet notes, a lot of tonka bean vanillic notes in this, and this scent packs a punch. I have oversprayed this before, so trust me when I say I know. This is not one that requires a lot of sprays. This one pretty much will last all day long. I don't really have a number for it, I haven't kept track, but I mean easily 10 up to 12 hours, if not longer, with this scent, and projects very nicely as well, and works excellently for warmer weather. Even though it does have a bit of a richer characteristic to it, it still can work for the summertime, so it is definitely a strong summertime fragrance. Once again, from the house of Mason Francis Kirkjohn, this is Amyris Homme Extrait de Parfum. Next up, got one from the house of Orto Parisi. This is Bergamask. Orto Parisi Bergamask. A powerful scent this is. If you're familiar with the house of Orto Parisi, it's like a staple for them. Strong fragrances, many of them more so maybe aroma chemically inspired. They don't necessarily give a note breakdown, but even so, a note breakdown is not indicative of what is actually in the fragrance. But yes, this is a kind of a play on bergamot and musk overall. Not really a realistic bergamot smell here, but you get that bright like characteristic of bergamot. And same with the musk. It's kind of a heavy, maybe trying to be like a deer musk kind of smell. I do feel that if you overspray this, it can kind of come across having this slight animalic funk to it, just kind of sweaty, if you will. But people love the way this stuff smells. This is a compliment getting scent. It is powerful. It pushes off the skin, and it will last all day long easily. Not even their most powerful fragrance, but longevity is not a problem with this scent. Great for the summertime, great for the heat. Definitely at least in my opinion, a summertime intent fragrance. The fragrance was made to work well in the warm weather. So once again, from the house of Orto Parisi, this is Bergamask. All right, we got another one from the house of Mason Francis Kirkjohn. It's going to be Aqua Celestia Forte. Mason Francis Kirkjohn, Aqua Celestia Forte. So this one here, I mean, look, we all know Mason Francis Kirkjohn fragrances have some amazing, fresher fragrance offerings. But this one here is, you could say it's got a little bit of a soapy vibe, sort of. It's not the most soapiest fragrance out of these kind of aqua fragrances, in my opinion. This one's a little bit more lime inspired, white floral inspired. I think there might be some jasmine in this. There's plenty of musk in this as well. Does have a little bit of that kind of gin and tonic kind of vibe. It's not boozy smelling. It just kind of puts you in that mindset, in my opinion. But this is a great, fresh and clean fragrance. People also love the way this stuff smells. You see the dent in this bottle. That's not my dent. That is my wife's dent. This was primarily her scent. So if she ever goes back to it, we're gonna need another bottle. But this stuff lasts all day. And even when she wore it, she was like, you can still smell, gone for hours, comes back later in the day. I meet her back at the house later in during the day. And I'm like, yeah, I can still smell it easily. You know, this stuff pushes and lasts all day long. And this one doesn't necessarily smell like it would last that long, but it does. Once again, from the house of Mason Francis Kirkjohn, this is Aqua Celestia Forte. Moving on to one from the house of Kajal. This is Masa. Kajal Masa. Isn't that bottle awesome? I mean, look at that. I don't know about you. I mean, green's my favorite color, so a good green bottle always gonna win with me. So this one here, think fruity, think sweet, with a touch of patchouli heavy earthiness to it. This has kind of a tart and tangy kind of sweetness to it. Also this kind of crisp, fruity vibe, similar to apple. Doesn't really smell like apple, just kind of makes me think of apple. Man, really nice leafy patchouli in this. Not really heavy and earthy, just more of the lighter leafy variety, if that makes sense, which is why I think that makes this a great summertime fragrance, because it's not too heavy with that earthiness. It has a sweetness to it, but it's not really a thick or rich sweetness. It's just more of a, I don't know, a light sweetness, I would say. I guess is how you could summarize it, but yeah, fruity and sweet. As many offerings from the house of Kajal. This one projects nicely, lasts all day long easily, I would say this is another one you probably don't need too many sprays. I would say if you do overspray this one, I feel like you would go anosmic to it. I've never tested it spraying it heavier yet. I've always kind of gone light with the sprays, but this one definitely a compliment getter in my opinion. You can pretty much use it for anything and it will last through those summer days. Once again, from the house of Kajal, this is Masa. All right, moving on to the house of Lorenzo Pizzalia. This is Black Sea. Lorenzo Pizzalia Black Sea. Now this one here, let me just tell you right now, this is, I'm just gonna call it the second strongest fragrance on this list. Man, because this stuff is nuclear status. You put this on, you're committed. If it gets on your clothes, you're committed. This got on my raincoat over a month, like 2 or 3 months ago at this point, and I can still pick up hints of it in the raincoat. And the raincoat's been rained on a few times since then, and it hasn't really like washed it off. Now I haven't thrown it in the washer, but I don't really feel I need to do that. Anyway, this is going to be a green and heavy dark aquatic. Quite salty, very heavy with like the ambergris kind of notes. So if you're not a fan of ambergris, this one might not be for you. It is more green in nature, and I wouldn't say it's fishy, but it does smell like deep water, and it's kind of inspired by, like, you know, the sea right before a storm is blowing in. It does have a kind of a little bit of a woodiness to it, kind of like a driftwood kind of woodiness, just hiding way in the background there, but that's overwhelmingly what you get from this. It has a little bit of a powderiness as well. This stuff projects like a monster as far as I'm concerned. Really nice big sillage, and it just lasts all freaking day. I mean, it's easily going to be one that will give you the performance and projection if that's what you're looking for, and it works great for the summertime. And yeah, you could pretty much use this for anything as far as I'm concerned. Once again, from the house of Lorenzo Pizzalia, this is Black Sea. All right, we got another one from the house of Orto Parisi. This one is Megamare. Orto Parisi Megamare. All right, so this, I'm just gonna say, is probably the strongest fragrance, not just on this list, possibly the strongest one in my entire cabinet. I mean, I haven't tested that, but it's a powerful scent. And I was telling my wife it. She saw me take this out because I took this with me for work this past week, so I wore it for like 2 days straight. And she asked me, like, had I smelled this? I'm like, yeah, you smelled this. And she smelled it again. She was like, it smells really nice and light. And I told her, like, yeah, it has a light smell, but it's probably the strongest fragrance in my cabinet. She was like, even stronger than red tobacco? And I said, yes, even stronger than red tobacco. This fragrance here, also aquatic, more fresh than Black Sea. That one's more of a deep aquatic. This one is kind of the fresher variety. Doesn't really have, I mean, you could say there's a hint of saltiness, but I wouldn't really consider this like a salty aquatic. Kind of not even really marine overall. It just kind of has that aquatic characteristic to it. A little bit more ozonic in nature. A lot of muskiness in this one as well. And also, we think it has a heavy note of cologne. I say we think because that's pretty much agreed upon, that the note of cologne is strongly represented in this fragrance, which is an aroma chemical that gives aquatic features and also has a slight fruitiness that can best be related to like a smell of watermelon, kind of like a candied watermelon. There's a lot of that in here if that's the case. I do think this scent is pleasant. I do think it smells good. It's not my favorite scent profile overall in the cabinet. It doesn't really even get me excited, but this stuff is powerful. I sprayed it one time under my shirt, once on the back of my neck for both days, and I could smell it all day and no problem. I mean, it's like, yeah, do not go strong with the sprays on this if you're in an environment where you're not trying to be intrusive with your scent profile. But if you need something to just fill up a room, so to speak, and you just want to be that guy that's doing that, this scent will do that easily, and you don't even need a lot of sprays to do it. Once again, from the house of Orto Parisi, this is Megamare. All right, next one's coming from the house of Parfums de Marly, and this is going to be Greenley. Parfums de Marly, Greenley. This is one of those ones that was kind of a sleeper in terms of this category of like long-lasting scents. I kind of didn't really realize it at first. I didn't even really get the fragrance because of that. I liked the way it smelled. I mean, this kind of smells like, think of like a green apple shampoo, but you know, not cheap smelling and doesn't have like the shampoo-y chemical smell to it. I readily kind of think of Head & Shoulders Green Apple. That was my, you know, shampoo and conditioner for I don't know how many years. But this smells better than that. There's also a good amount of muskiness to this. There's tanginess, crisp apple kind of smell to this. There's also some like clean woodiness to this scent. This is wonderful. It's green overall in nature, but I wouldn't really call it a full-blown green fragrance. This is a wonderful scent for the high heat, in my opinion. Another one where, in my opinion, you don't really need a lot of sprays. It projects nicely. It's a people pleaser for sure. And I get great longevity out of this scent. Now, I don't know if everybody does. Again, it's not one I hear people necessarily talk about in terms of the category of projection and performance. But I'm just saying, for me, I get great projection and great performance out of this fragrance. And frankly, I need to wear it more. But if I'm being honest, Parfums de Marly is kind of taking a back seat in terms of my interest right now. I'm not saying I don't like them. It's just taking a back seat. So I sometimes just forget that I even have this. But anyway, great scent if you want longevity, projection, and can pretty much use it for just about anything, especially in the summertime. Once again, from the house of Parfums de Marly, this is Greenley. All right, next one's coming from the house of Nishane, and this is Hacivat. Nishane Hacivat. Now, I imagine if you've never heard of Hacivat or are new to the scent and you just hear people talking about it, you hear what they say and they say this is a powerful fragrance. And that's because they're right. Matter of fact, just kind of a shout out to Turkish fragrance houses. That's kind of a staple of theirs. They make fragrances that are very, very strong. I don't know if that has to do with the ecosystem in Turkey, you know, because I'm not that familiar with what the environment is like in Turkey. I've never like really looked it up, and just not something I'm that aware of, but it could be that, you know, oftentimes if you have a fragrance house in a specific environment, they might make fragrances that are going to work well in that environment. And especially if it's like a desert, you need something that is strong, that can kind of withstand that dry air without it getting, you know, evaporated in 5 minutes. So that's why a lot of Middle Eastern fragrances are very, very strong. They're not strong to appease us. They're strong because they need them to be like that to be able to work in those environments. But anyway, enough with all of that. This one here is a pineapple bergamot bright and brisk fragrance with a lot of oak moss in the base, which is kind of one of the things that turns a lot of people off to this scent. Oak moss and cedar wood is primarily what I get, and then kind of tying those two elements together, you get this nice creamy rich jasmine. You don't really, you know, it's kind of there as a binder, if you will. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a star to the fragrance, but fruity and woody overall is what you're gonna get with this, along with that oak moss. So that's not for everyone, the oak moss in particular. If you don't like oak moss, maybe check out Hacivat X. But one thing is for sure about this scent, and look, I know some people complain about newer batches. I can attest to that, but powerful, don't necessarily need a lot of sprays. I personally just like to spray it a little heavier, you know, like 6 sprays, but you could get away with 3 with this and be just fine. Projects very nicely, lasts all day long. If it gets in your clothes, it's going to be hard to wash out. Once again, from the house of Nishane, this is Hacivat. All right, next one's coming from the house of Mancera. We've got Intense Cedrat Boise. Mancera Intense Cedrat Boise. Interesting side note about this scent. You notice this, if you've watched my channel for a while, you know I don't necessarily talk about this one that much. And it's not a fragrance I dislike, it's just kind of in the middle in terms of how much I like it. Yet there's actually a pretty decent dent, given, you know, how many fragrances I have and how much I change my scent up. And granted, this is only a 60 milliliter bottle, but that's actually a pretty good dent. So maybe I wear this more than I recognize, and maybe I need to wear it more. But anyway, this one is the ramped up version of the famous Cedrat Boise from the house of Mancera. Think rich and tangy, fruity citrus with this. a ramped up sweetness, if you will, compared to Cedrat Boise. To me, Cedrat's a little bit more fresher overall. A little bit of a leatheriness kind of hiding in there, a stronger woody base to the fragrance. And look, I may not hold it in super high regards, but this stuff smells great. I mean, I cannot deny it. And honestly, anytime I have worn it, performance has never been an issue with it. I wouldn't necessarily say it's beast mode, but it'll easily get you through the entire day if you needed to. And yeah, the scent profile still pretty much works for everything. And yes, even though this is a thicker and denser version of the Cedrat Boise DNA, I do think this still easily works for summertime, even the hottest days, if you want to go for that. May work a little bit better for, you know, peak of summer nights overall, but I still say you can wear it, especially if you're going to be indoors, because at that point it doesn't really matter as much. So once again, from the house of Mancera, this is Intense Cedrat Boise. All right, last but not least, coming from the house of Gisada, we have got Ambassador. Gisada Ambassador. Now this one here, some people have complained about performance with this, particularly ever since I kind of did the features once these fragrances were sent to me. And all I can say is, I'm sorry to hear that, but that is not my experience. But I do think this is a fragrance you could go nose blind to if you overspray it, in my opinion. I think that can happen. So this is, at first you kind of think of Sauvage when you smell this. Think of like a fruitier Sauvage overall. But once you kind of get used to the scent, you see it is its own thing. But I do think it took a little bit of inspiration from Sauvage. But yeah, fruity kind of notes at the top of the fragrance. Those do kind of die down first of all. You know, they're kind of the top notes. They do kind of leave first. But overall, the fragrance is spicy with a little bit of a lavender-like feel and woody. Spicy, lavender, woody overall. Kind of would... I don't know, kind of tough to say. Spice overall, you know, again, nothing really sticks out. It's kind of like an accord of spices because the fragrance doesn't really have a natural smell. It kind of just has an overall nice blend to it. But I do get that lavender kind of feel, and that lavender and spicy feel is what makes me think of Sauvage. It does have a good amount of sweetness as well. And the fragrance here, this could be a signature scent as far as I'm concerned, but it actually does work well in the heat. And also, this you can use for literally anything. It does kind of have that Sauvage usage factor where you can just spray this on and it'll work for anything. But yeah, every time I've worn this, I've gotten great performance out of it. Projection may not necessarily be monstrous with this, but it's not weak. And also, I wouldn't call this a beast mode scent either, but easily you could get 8 to 10, if not more hours out of it. Once again, from the house of Gisada, this is Ambassador. Alright guys, that is gonna do it for this video. So let me know down in the comments below. I'm pretty sure many of you are fans of strong, fresher, or maybe summertime fragrances is a better word for it, because not all of these were necessarily fresh. But hey, let me know what some of your favorites in your collection are that would fit in this category. Summertime fragrances that are strong, project, and perform. Looking forward to seeing what you guys have to say. Thanks again for watching all the way into the end. I really do appreciate you guys. Please remember to be well and smell well. And I'll see you all in the next episode of The Fragrance Well. Have a good one.